This might be the most unhinged episode of Joe Rogan Experience to date with Terrence Howard. I think that people are saying he's going through a schizophrenic break, or he's the most intelligent man on the planet and he's figured out all of the questions of the universe for us. He claims he can kill gravity. He claims he can remember being in his mother's womb. He claims he can remember being circumcised as an infant. He claims that he has remodeled the periodic table. Carbon is bisexual.
I always suspected.
What else?
Carbon's bi-curious.
He outed Carbon. And, you know, all of the secrets of his own belief system called Terriology. He has reconfigured all of logic.
I had never read this article from The Independent back in 2015. I was riveted by the theory of Terriology. But let's listen to the clip of him talking about the periodic table so you guys can get an idea of what it is that we're talking about here. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
When you say rebuild the periodic table, what do you mean specifically?
Well, the way the periodic table is laid out, the periodic table they have now,
Let's see.
it looks like a box. It looks like a straight box. But they don't show that hydrogen has the same tone as carbon.
What do you mean by tone?
Same tone, same key of E. Same key of E, 40.5 hertz. The next one would be like 81 hertz. You go to silicon, it will double up and would be 162 hertz. You'll go to cobalt, and it'll be 324 hertz. It's take the angles of incidence or the tones that they create, you know, their color. Like you can turn color back into sound based upon, it's the same wavelength, it's just twice as long or much longer. So all you have to do is keep dividing light by 2. You keep dividing light by 2, and you'll ultimately get back to the audible sound of it, because there was a relationship between light and color, sound and tone, matter and shape. Walter Russell's periodic table that he put together. Now you compare that to Mendeleev's periodic table, and you'll see something completely different. It's unwinding.
Whoa.
And you see there's a relationship that hydrogen.
So you had figured this out at a young age?
I had already seen this. This was all inside of that palace. I had access to it, and I knew the relationship.
You saw this in dreams?
I saw it as a circle. Everything was a full circle laid out, and each area.
I mean, who was it that figured out that the Earth revolved around the sun? Copernicus?
Oh, don't ask me.
He was considered a madman too.
I thought it was Galileo.
Whoever
I could
it
be
was.
totally wrong.
I have no idea. Again, I have no idea whether any of this stuff is true, but this is my favorite thing that I've seen all week. Just because even if I'm being lied to, it's my favorite lie.
Let him
of all time.
cook.
It's expanding, like wrapping a rag around your hand. The first wrap, you know, it's so tight. This is how I saw it more so, but as a vortex, you'll see there's a relationship between hydrogen, carbon, silicon, cobalt, rhodium. They're all bonded. They're all sit as the middle point between two noble gases. So those things.
All this wants me to do is invest in something he's selling. That's all it does. What are you selling, man? Do you need help?
Maybe
with
he's
the
not
startup?
selling anything.
That's the thing.
He's just trying to teach us the truth.
don't really exist. It's only one substance. Now the problem
Where's Ian? We need
the
Ian.
First thing that
Where
we're
is
able
Ian
to
when we need him?
Is hydrogen. That's the first visible element.
A conversation
Because
between
before, it is
Terrence
too
Howard and Ian
dense
would be a
for us to
trip.
perceive it. You understand what I'm saying? As you reach into the next octave,
He's like,
the
"You understand what I'm
carbon
saying?" I'm
octave,
like,
and they call that
"No."
a
Rogan's like,
bisexual
yeah,
tone,
I
because
know.
the carbon has 2 tones to it. It has a negative side and a positive side. The part where lithium behaves,
What is
lithium
happening?
is contractive. Beryllium is contractive. Boron is contractive, but the moment you get to carbon, you balance it out. Gets to a perfect balance of plus and minus 4. So it's a double tone. Nitrogen is -3, oxygen is -2, fluorine is -1. Now the balance of this, all of those are mates. Fluorine and lithium naturally mate. If you have lithium bonded with any other element, the moment that fluorine is introduced, it will break all bonds violently so it can bond with fluorine.
Somebody in the chat brought up his patents. Let's talk about the patents.
Yeah. In the same interview, Terrence Howard claimed that a patent he owned but later abandoned in 2010 was the basis of the virtual reality technology utilized by dozens of companies today. That would include Google,
Yes.
right? A lot of others. He also claimed to Joe Rogan that he recalls being in his mother's womb and the day he was born. He remembers being circumcised, the whole 9 yards. He makes a lot of eye-opening statements regarding physics, and he believes himself to be a serious researcher. And unfortunately, I know just as little about chemistry and physics as the next guy, so I don't really have the base knowledge to refute anything he's saying.
This is just a little bit of what it said from his Wikipedia. So,
Yeah, can you explain teriology to us?
We'll get there, but it says he stated that he went to school for chemical engineering and applied materials, though he did not complete his engineering degree. Howard thinks of himself as an engineer. That was brutal language on Wikipedia.
He thinks of himself as an
engineer. And intends to
engineer.
return one day to complete the 3 credits of which he is shy to complete his degree. Howard's account of his educational history has not been confirmed. Pratt Institute, which he says he attended, closed its engineering degree program in 1993. On February 26, 2013, Howard said on Jimmy Kimmel Live that he earned a PhD in chemical engineering from South Carolina State University that year. He, however, never attended the university, and in fact, SCSU does not confer doctorates in chemical engineering. Instead, he was awarded an honorary degree of a doctorate of humane letters from SCSU after speaking at a commencement ceremony in 2012. This is kind of like how I felt when I found out that Dolph Lundgren was more educated than Bill Nye the Science Guy.
So no formal education at all.
No. I mean, maybe he went there and just didn't finish the degree. But it says Howard is the sole inventor listed on U.S. patent application US 20100271394A1, titled, quote, "A system and method for merging virtual reality and reality to provide an enhanced sensory experience," which has been cited by Amazon, Microsoft, HP, Sony, Raytheon, among 30 other major corporations. It was later abandoned by Howard and was not granted.
Okay.
So
I guess that part is true, right? I don't know what to make of all of that. But I also wanted to explain teriology to you guys because it's actually his own language of logic that he has talked about publicly before. In a 2015 interview with Rolling Stone, Terrence Howard explained that he had formulated his own language of logic called teriology, which he was keeping secret until he patented it. This logic language, he claimed, would be used to prove the statement 1 × 1 = 2. It doesn't.
If people are wondering who this guy, I saw somebody says, who is this? He's an actor. He was in Empire. He was also the original Rhodey in Iron Man, in the first one. Before
He's been in a lot of things.
Before Don Cheadle replaced him.
This is what Hollywood does to people. He wanted to prove that 1 × 1 = 2. Okay, so let's just see what his explanation says. How can it equal 1, he said. If 1 × 1 = 1, that means that 2 is of no value because 1 times itself has no effect. 1 × 1 = 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. So what's the square root of 2? Should be 1, but we're told it's 2. That cannot be. What was really confusing to me about this statement is that I was never told that the square root of 2 was 2.
Common Core math, I'm telling you, it's ruining the school system.
2 doesn't have a square root, right? Like, am I going crazy? I thought that that's what it meant, that 2 is a prime number. It doesn't have a square root, but, whatever. Terrence Howard knows better than me.
He sounds credible when he's talking, and that's all you need.
He sounds very calm, collected. He knows his stuff.
Look, a lot of people who made a lot of discoveries were chastised and ostracized before they were proven correct. So perhaps one day the scientific community will come together to prove all of this.
So Howard blames his leaving Pratt over disagreements with a professor regarding this hypothesis. He also stated that he spends many hours a day constructing models of plastic and wire that he patented and claims to confirm his belief. He was actually showing some of these models on this podcast. In 2017, he published his proof of the claim that 1 × 1 = 2 on his Twitter account. Some concerns were raised on the logical consistency of Howard's thinking. But who am I to say? right?
He also
He's obviously thought about this more than I have.
yes. Look, I loved it because I loved the general response from people. I saw responses that ran the gamut. There was people who were saying this guy is clearly the smartest man alive. Other people were saying either I'm really dumb or he's having a psychotic break, and maybe he's just so smart I can't understand it.
I said any black actor over 40 will either become a black Israelite eventually or whatever the heck this is that we just watched. But here were some comments. If Cat Williams interviewed Terrence Howard, they would just stare at each other and nod. This is the longest let him cook of all time. We need a Terrence Howard versus a physicist debate on Joe Rogan. In case anyone was wondering, Joe Rogan spoke for 13 minutes of this 3-hour interview.
That's got to be what Rogan loves, right? He gets to just be like, let him cook.
This is Joe Rogan in his element, really, because he lets people just kind of talk and talk until they make themselves look stupid.
Or they make great points.
Who are we to say? Again.
Here is also where he talks about sacrificing himself for Robert Downey Jr. in the MCU.
Okay.
Here we go.
I know how hard Robert had it coming out of that jail. And so if I had to sacrifice myself in order for that, because guess what? In the series, War Machine was supposed to take over. Out of nowhere, that gets taken away. And I'm calling Robert Downey Jr. I'm calling him because Susan Downey, she was like, but Robert really wants to go in, but they won't see him. And I was like, I love Robert. So I called Avi Arad immediately. He was the producer on it. Like, instead of the $4.5 million you want to give me, why don't you take $1 million for the bond for him? So he gets the part. Robert is like, I love you. Thank you so much. Well, when this other thing happened, I'm calling Robert, and he's doing Sherlock Holmes. I called him 27 times. I'm like, I need the help I gave you. I didn't hear from him until 3 years later. But instead of just doing that, they had to spin, he was terrible on set and all of these things, and went through all this stuff.
Yes.
They also said he was fired from the MCU because they didn't want him getting all 6 Infinity Stones.
I thought it was a contract dispute. He wanted more
though?
money, and they wouldn't agree to more money, which sounds plausible to me. But hey, I wasn't there. What do I know?
So, what's more confusing is that there are people in the comments claiming that they understood him. Am I just the dummy?
No, the point is to just say it and then, and then everyone's like, yeah, I got it. Oh, yeah, of course. Nobody wants to be. It's kind of like me when somebody's talking for 20 minutes and I can't hear them because I'm basically going.
And you're
deaf.
like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
didn't know that.
Yeah. Wow. The worst is when you laugh and you find out it wasn't something you're supposed to laugh at. It's not good.
Like, why did he think it was funny that my aunt died?
So he is the real Tony Stark, basically.
Jack
That's
White
impressive.
also had some very strong opinions about this podcast. He posted to his Instagram, "Hey everyone, just a reminder, you should definitely be getting your facts about science and medicine from Terrence Howard and Joe Rogan. I wouldn't waste any time trusting scientists or doctors who went to universities for 12 years getting a PhD or anything. Nor should you trust anyone who understands what peer reviewing is. It's really great that MMA Joe uses his platform in front of millions to make sure everyone gets the truth. Keep up the great work, MAGA Joe. You're helping people." You just ruined the fun.
Nobody's allowed to just have fun anymore and having. You know what it is? Jack White would be horrible at getting high with his friends and having a conversation that runs deep. That's all that stuff is.
Even if it's just fake deep.
Yes.
Let it be what it is.
Let it is. You know what? Sometimes life is fake deep. Okay? Like we were talking about the other day. Making a movie that's anti-human isn't actually deep. It's fake deep, and it's the fakest of all of them. But they seem to be fine with doing that. Mm-hmm. Stupid. I did find this absolutely hilarious, though. It's not my favorite Joe Rogan interview that I've seen recently, and I haven't watched a lot of them, was the one he did with Taylor Sheridan, which was actually really interesting. But most of that is they talked a lot about like homesteading and a lot about like what life was like in Hollywood when they were trying to make stuff during COVID, which I found interesting. But I understand not everybody's gonna find that super fascinating. So
I mean, 3 hours of Terrence Howard talking about.
We need to get Terrence
periodic
Howard
table.
on IRL with Ian. That's
it
what we
would be incredible.
They might solve the universe if they did that.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.